Bonjour le gars,
Bonjour.
ça va?
Oui, ça va, et toi?
Ça va très bien, merci. Bonjour Sandeep,
Bonjour,
ça va bien? Ok. Bonjour Nora,
Bonjour,
ça va?
ça va bien?
Ok, super. All right, we're still going to wait a couple minutes for everybody to join the class. And then once most people have joined in, we'll be able to start. Thanks for coming in today. Bonjour Johanna,
Ah, bonjour.
ça va?
Oui, ça va. Et toi?
Ça va très bien, merci. Ok. So as I've told previously, we'll still be waiting a couple minutes for everybody to join. So I think that we're going to be able to join at, well, in 2 minutes, probably. Bonjour Beth,
Bonjour.
ça va?
Ça va?
Ça va? Super, okay. Uh, yeah. I think that we're going to be able to start. So today's class, for those who aren't there yet, I think they'll just get the train a bit later on, okay? Um, okay, so we're going to start as usual. I'm going to share my screen and the presentation of today's class, okay? So here we are. Okay. So la dernière fois, okay, so last time, we talked about a number of things, including, well, numbers. We talked about a little bit of conjugation, even though we weren't going really deep into conjugation, okay? So I see that most of you were there on Tuesday, so we're going to be able to review what we learned last time, okay? So once again, here are the objectives of today's class. For the reviewing part, we're going to still look into the genders and the basic rules of genders with feminine and masculine. We're still going to be able to talk about tastes and hobbies, about the numbers, colors too, because we finished on colors, but we didn't have much time to talk about it. Okay. So we're going to be moving on that. Okay. Bonjour Bella, ça va? Okay, so we're going to learn today. So close because we didn't have time to learn about that last time. We're also going to look a little bit deeper about the conjugation, and as I've told you previously about the groups in French conjugation, okay? So for today, we're going to learn about the first group, ER, or you can say E, okay? And lastly, we're going to do a little bit of phonetics with, well, the presence of the accents E and E, okay? All right, here's the table of contents of today. So as we say in French, the sommaire. Bonjour Bella, tu nous entends?
Bonjour, oui, désolée, je suis en retard.
Non, pas de souci, no problem, no worry.
Merci.
Ok, donc on va voir les chiffres, les couleurs, la conjugaison, conjugation, ok. Then les vêtements, ok. Un peu de phonétique, a little bit of phonetics. And lastly, we're going to try to use everything we've learned today and in the past unit to kind of do a presentation of some sort of what we learned during the unit. Okay. Des questions? Pas de questions? Okay. All right, good. Pour l'introduction, okay. So for the introduction, so what can you see on the screen for now? Colors, okay, three colors. Can someone maybe remind me what are the colors in French here?
Le rouge,
Le rouge, okay, yeah. Très bien.
le jaune,
Jaune,
Le jaune, très bien. Et
les
la
bleus.
dernière couleur, le bleu, ok, très bien. Donc, we always start by asking each other how we're doing today, okay? So now, instead of saying how we're doing, we're going to try to link that with a color, okay? So for example, today, aujourd'hui, okay? Je suis jaune, okay? If you can try to make an explanation of why you feel yellow, pourquoi tu es jaune, ou rouge, ou bleu, feel free to try, okay? Otherwise, you can just stop at je suis jaune, ou je suis bleu, je suis rouge, okay? And then you can ask someone else in the class to, well, give what their color is, okay? Donc, je vais commencer. Alors, bonjour Loga, tu m'entends? Est-ce que tu nous entends? Can you hear us, Loga?
Oh, yes, I can
Oui.
hear.
Ok, très bien. Tu peux nous entendre. Alors, j'ai dit, je suis jaune. Et toi, Loga, comment ça va?
Oui, ça va.
Mhm.
Euh,
Est-ce que... Mhm.
je suis rouge.
Rouge, ok, très bien. Est-ce que tu peux demander à quelqu'un d'autre dans la classe?
Bella, ça va? Oui, ça va bien, merci. Je suis jaune parce
Ok,
que il fait du soleil et c'était une très belle journée.
ah, très bien, très bien. C'est vrai que c'est une belle journée.
Ouais.
Mhm.
Euh, euh, et Joanna, comment ça va?
moi aussi, je suis jaune parce que je suis contente.
Ok, très bien.
Nora, comment ça va?
Ça va bien. Euh, Aujourd'hui, je suis bleue parce que le ciel bleu.
Ok, très bien. Ok.
Euh, Bethan, comment ça va?
Oui, ça va bien. Je suis de bleu. Euh, Prends-moi vêtements.
Ah, d'accord, très bien. Ok. Et le dernier, Sandeep.
Sandeep, ça va?
Ça va, et toi? Je suis blanc aujourd'hui.
Ok,
Je ne sais pas pourquoi.
ok, très bien. Ok, merci à tous et toutes. Ok. On avance du coup sur les chiffres. Ok, so numbers. Um, Last class we talked about, well, a couple of numbers or dozens that we may have not learned for now. Okay. Um, so we're not going to be talking about, well, from de 1 à 20, okay? Because I assume that most of you have got how we can count from 1 to 20, okay? But it's starting to be a little bit harder once we reach the number 21, okay? Donc le chiffre 21, okay? So you can see on the screen that we have 21, 22, 23, 24, etc. Okay. But starting from 30, donc à partir de 30, how do we count the numbers? Can someone try to remind me or remind the whole class how we count, like from the dozen, 30, ensuite 40, 50, 60, etc.
It's multiply and plus.
So,
For example, 90.
mhm,
Cut is like 4. One
mhm,
is 20, something like multiply and we plus by this. So
mhm.
it to 90.
Très bien. Oui. Alors, so what you're saying is, for example, with 80 et 90, okay? So we have those two numbers, or those two dozens, who are a bit different. We can also add 70, okay? On a ces trois dizaines qui sont un peu difficiles, okay? So they're a little bit difficult because as you may know, okay, from 20 to 60, de 20 à 60, it's fairly simple because it's the same pattern, okay? So we have 31, 32, 33, etc. Okay? Same thing for 40, okay? 50 et 60. But starting from 70, there's a little bit of a change in the pattern. Can someone try to remind me how that pattern changes? Donc, avec 70,
Instead of going up by like under 12, you go up from 10, 11, 12.
yeah, so it's starting from 11, yeah. So if we have 70, then we have 71, okay? 72, 73, etc., etc. Ok. Et pour 80, du coup, comment ça marche? So, how does it work with 80 here? So do we start also with, like, for example, 91 or 81? So what are we doing? Are we saying 11 or 1?
On.
Yeah. So maybe Nora, you can try to give a clue as to how we can not like make a mistake between un and onze?
I don't really understand the question. I feel like just from the last class, it was 70 and 90. Those
Yep.
were the ones that we use our ons, deux, treize at the end of the number instead of un, deux, trois.
Totally. So these are those two. But there's a clue here with these, okay?
Okay.
So let's say that these, so we know that these is the number 10, okay? So we know that maybe after these we have 11, 22, 13, 14. So you would count up like from 10 to 19 only with those dozens who have these, okay? So there are only for 70 and 90, okay? So for example, it would be the same thing for 70 and 90. So it can be kind of tricky, okay? But again, it's not really, once you get the hang of it, it really starts to become a kind of something that is automatic, okay? And what happens after 100? Donc ici, on a 100. Qu'est-ce qui se passe après 100? How are we counting after 100?
Would it be cent et un?
Yeah. So it starts again. Yeah. So technically, once you can count up to 100, you can count up to 999, so 999, because it's basically the same thing. It just repeats itself. And well, if we take the example even a little bit further, okay? So how would we say 200? How would we say 300, etc.?
Is it 200, 300, 400?
Oui, très bien. It's the same thing as in English, where you have 100, 200. So basically, it repeats itself with un. Donc, 100 is un. And then we have 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, etc. Okay? So it's, once again, it's basically the same pattern as in English, where it's kind of some scaling, okay? The only big difference is with 70, 80, and 90, which are a bit tricky to learn, okay? Pas de questions pour l'instant, non? No questions? Pas de questions? C'est clair pour vous? Is it all clear for all of you? Yeah? Okay. Donc, ensuite, on a parlé des couleurs, ok? Donc, you can see on the screen a little reminder of all the colors that we saw so far, okay? Something that was important when we talked about colors is the gender here. So here we talked a little bit deeper into what's the gender of a color. So for example, here a color is a noun and it is a masculine noun, okay? So if you have like a color that is a common noun, it will be masculine. But we are going to see a bit later with the clothes that it's a bit tricky because, well, the same thing as in English, colors are also adjectives. And we're going to learn about the basic rules of genders with adjectives because it's a bit tricky. Okay. Donc, je vais vous poser une question. I'm going to ask a simple question that we did last time. So maybe for Sandeep, you can be the first one to answer those questions, okay? Quelles sont tes couleurs préférées, Sandeep?
Le rouge.
Ok, le rouge. Est-ce que tu en as une autre?
J'adore. J'adore le rouge.
J'adore le rouge, ok. Est-ce que tu pourrais essayer d'utiliser le verbe préféré?
Hmm,
So how would you use the verb préféré?
je préférais le rouge.
Okay, so it's close. It's not je préférais, c'est je préfère. Okay,
Je
so,
préfère.
ok,
Oui.
très bien. Ok. Est-ce que tu peux demander à quelqu'un d'autre dans la classe? Could you maybe ask to someone else in the class?
Oui, oui.
Très bien.
Joanna, quelle couleur,
Quelles
euh,
sont tes couleurs?
oui, quelles sont tes couleurs préférées?
Très bien, merci Sandeep.
Je préfère le rose.
Le rose, ok, très
Rose.
bien. Ok, merci bien. Je reviens vers toi, Sandeep, ok? Back to you, Sandeep. Quelles sont les couleurs que tu n'aimes pas? Ok?
Euh, je ne, euh, je, je ne,
Je n'aime pas
je n'aime pas rouge,
le rouge, ok?
le rouge. Joanna, quelles sont les couleurs que tu n'aimes pas?
Très bien, merci Sandeep.
Je n'aime pas l'orange.
L'orange, ok, très bien. Okay, so you've said it perfectly. For example, with here we have the word orange. Okay, so if we take the example with English, we would typically hear the N here, but in French, it kind of forms an ensemble of letters, which forms like a single sound, en. So it would be l'orange. Okay. Merci beaucoup. Ok. Des questions là-dessus pour l'instant? Pas de questions, non? Ok, très bien. Et pour la conjugaison. So, conjugaison, you can hear that this is very similar in English, where we would say conjugation. Okay. So I've told previously that the conjugation in French was very different in English, where we would categorize certain verbs into certain groups. Okay. So we have three main groups of verbs in French. They have a specific order. They don't have a clear name besides like first group, second group, third group, okay? So here we have le premier groupe, okay? Comment est-ce que tu peux reconnaître le premier groupe? You can recognize the first group with this little ending with the ER, avec le ER, ok? On connaît déjà des verbes du premier groupe. I mean, you already know some verbs with some first group verbs because this is the most common groups, okay? So if we talk about maybe statistics, like it's maybe half of the French verbs are from the first group. So it's very common to encounter first group verbs, okay? On va prendre l'exemple du coup du verbe jouer, okay? We talked about, like in the previous classes, that in order to know how to conjugate verbs in French, you had to identify the root of the verb, okay? And then like the ending would be easy to understand, for example, with the first group, because it's ER, okay? Well, it's most generally ER. So here it's very easy, okay? Because we have ER, so we know that's the ending, and the rest is the root of the verb, okay? Et pour ce qui est du coup de la conjugaison, so for the conjugation, okay? So we have the root, and we would simply add a certain pattern of letters. So for example, for the first person, okay, on a E, ES, E, on, et ouf. Okay. So you'll see that, well, it's basically the same thing. Once you know like the pattern, for example, we have two other first group verbs, préférer et adorer. Et on va essayer de remplir du coup les cases ici. Okay. Can someone maybe try to read the first table of conjugation with the verb jouer? Any volunteers? Ok, Nora, je t'écoute. Merci, Nora.
Je joue,
Mhm.
tu jouais,
Tu joues.
tu joues,
Mhm.
il, elle joue, nous
Oui.
jouons, vous jouez, il, elle jouent,
Il joue. So,
il joue. Okay.
très bien. Merci, Nora. You can see that the pronunciation is kind of easy because like uh, for four persons, you have the same pronunciation. Some letters are mute, as you can see. Well, most of them are mute, okay? If we're strictly looking at the letters here, there are so many that are mute, okay? Here, the Z isn't pronounced, so you would say it would just change this first sound here. It would be jouer, okay? Très bien, Nora. Merci beaucoup, Nora. Alors, on va essayer de...
Adriel, I have a question regarding the last one. Why aren't we pronouncing it as jouer?
Oh, why?
ENT.
Because, well, it's just because there are mute letters, okay? So we wouldn't be able to pronounce them.
Okay, is it always the case with ENT when
It's
it's added in the end?
well, if it's ENT as a verb, yes. Yes, it is. And we're going to look at the two other verbs. So we're going to try to fill out all of those tables here. Okay. So who wants to try to fill out the first, well, the second verb here, which is préférer? Who is willing to give it a go? Anybody? Okay, well, I'll start. Okay, je vais commencer. So, we have identified the root here. Okay, so I'll just type the same thing here. Okay, I'll just copy and paste. Okay. Okay. So we have the roots here, okay? So according to you, what should we add here? What should we add to conjugate the verb préférer?
Or je préfère with just an E.
Just an E? Yep. Okay, so how do we pronounce E in French?
I don't know.
Okay.
Eh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Pour la deuxième personne, pour tu, Joanne.
S.
ES, ok. Pour la troisième,
E.
ok. Très bien. Ensuite,
Nous préférons.
préférence. So,
ONS.
ONS, ok. Très bien. Ensuite,
Vous préférez. EZ.
EZ. And the
then-
last one, le dernier,
Il préfère ENT. ENT.
ENT. Très bien. Ok. Très bien. I'm not going to do that again here. I'm just going to do it on my own. So for the first person, we're going to have the same thing. We have identified the root here, okay? So I can just confidently add the root on each person, okay? And then add the endings as followed in the pattern, okay? So it's very simple. Here it's E. Pour la première personne, c'est on, Z, et hop, 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 et ENT. Ok? Des questions pour ça ou ça va pour l'instant? Any questions? No questions? Okay. So about the conjugation. So you're going to encounter many verbs from the first group. As I've told you previously, it's kind of the most important group in the French conjugation. So you're going to frequently hear about them. If you're strictly talking about the pronunciations of the endings here, it would be the same thing as the first we've did with jouer. The final he in the verbs here are always going to be silent. So you can hear that j'adore, tu adores, elle adore, nous adorons, vous adorez, ils, elles adorent. Okay? It's strictly the same thing as the first and the second one. So no worries about that for now. Okay? Pas de questions? On peut avancer alors? Okay. So we're starting off what we are going to be learning new today, okay? So we're going to talk about les vêtements. Qu'est-ce que c'est les vêtements? Baffen, il me semble que tu sais ce qu'est un vêtement.
The clothes.
Yep, so it's the clothes, okay? So we're going to read a short text that is filled with vocabulary here about clothes, okay? So I'm going to read the first sentence, okay? Je m'appelle Lucas et je suis français. Okay. Who can read the next sentence? Qui peut lire la phrase d'après? un volontaire, un ou une volontaire. Any volunteer?
Yes.
Merci,
Je
Sandeep.
porte shall I go?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Je porte un t-shirt rose et un pantalon bleu.
Et un pantalon bleu. Make sure to not pronounce that T here. It's E. Mhm.
Et un pantalon bleu.
Ok. Est-ce que tu peux faire la phrase d'après aussi, s'il te plaît? Could
I'm
you
sorry,
try,
can you repeat?
could you try to make or read the next sentence, please?
Je porte aussi des lunettes noires et des chaussures marron.
Des chaussures marron, ok.
Des chaussures marron.
Très bien, ok. Merci Sandeep. Loga, est-ce que tu pourrais lire la suite? Est-ce que tu peux lire la suite?
Ma sœur s'appelle Marco et elle aime porter de robes.
Des robes, ok. La phrase d'après aussi.
Aujourd'hui, elle porte une robe jaune.
Très bien, merci Loga. Bella, est-ce que tu peux lire les deux phrases suivantes?
Alors, et aujourd'hui, elle porte une robe jaune avec sa robe jaune et porte des chaussures grises.
Les chaussures grises, ok. Est-ce que tu peux lire celle d'après? Notre père.
Notre père s'appelle Jean et porte toujours une chemise blanche avec,
Blanc.
avec, avec un pantalon noir.
Très bien. Merci Bella. Et Nora, est-ce que tu peux finir? So could you finish?
Notre mère s'appelle Patricia. Elle porte un jupe rouge et un pull blanc.
Okay, so we would pronounce that final letter. It's blanc.
Blanc.
Mhm.
À l'extérieur, nous portons un bonnet vert et une veste violette.
Violette. Très bien. Ok. Merci beaucoup. We're going to answer together the questions, okay? So what does the word entour means, okay? So entour, c'est ça. Okay. Who can give me some of the vocabulary of clothes that they've noticed in the text? Qui a vu des mots ou du vocabulaire sur les vêtements ici?
T-shirt et
T-shirt.
pantalon.
T-shirt et pantalon, très bien, ok. Très bien, merci Johanna. On l'a deux fois, pantalon. Ok. D'autres mots? Any other words here?
Lunettes.
Lunettes.
Chaussures.
Chaussures.
Robe.
Robe. Ok, très bien.
Chemise.
Chemise. Ok.
Jupe.
Jupe. Ok.
Pull. I don't know how to pronounce it. Pull.
Un pull. Yeah.
Pull.
So it's something that, well, French has borrowed from English. However, if you would like to pronounce it in the French way, the U here is pronounced U, just as the way we would pronounce the vowel U. Okay, in French it's U. Et il en reste deux. There's still two left.
Bonnet et veste.
Okay, so it's bonnet.
Bonnet.
Same tricky thing. The T is silent. Et veste. Okay. Très bien. Merci, Joanna. Okay, so we have several words here that are related to the vocabulary of clothes. Next up, we're going to try to find the verbs here. Did anyone notice some verbs that they've already seen before? Alors, il y a deux verbes. Il y a deux verbes du coup dans le texte. So there are two verbs in the text. Okay. What are they?
In the first sentence, the verb être.
Okay, so my bad, we have three verbs. So we have still two verbs to find. Okay. Très bien, le verbe être.
And then porte.
Porte. Très bien. Ok. Et le dernier, qui est au tout début. So it's at the very start of the text. It's right around here.
Okay.
S'appeler, okay? So you know about the verb s'appeler. Par exemple, je m'appelle Adriel, tu t'appelles Nora, okay? It's a tricky thing because you can see here like the little M. I think that we don't have that kind of thing in English. It's called a pronominal verb, where it would only be used with a pronoun. Here it's the little M, okay? So that's why you would use, like, for example, je m'appelle, tu t'appelles, okay? However, the verb is appeler, okay? So we have those three verbs, okay? So we have s'appeler, okay? Être et porter. So what group are those verbs part of? Any idea, maybe?
ER group 1.
Yeah, so which one are from the first group?
Porte.
Porter, ok, très bien. Et le dernier? C'est s'appeler. Ok. Appeler. Et pour être, une idée peut-être du groupe? So possibly which group can it belong in? Any idea, any guess? So it's in the last group, okay? The last group of verbs is often referred as the, well, the irregular group because, for example, the method of using the root of the verb to kind of conjugate isn't working here, as you can see. Être dramatically changes with the conjugation depending on the pronouns. We have je suis, tu es. It doesn't follow a strict and really decisive pattern. Okay, so the last group is the trickiest because same thing as the irregular verbs in English. You have to know them beforehand in order to know how to conjugate them. Okay. So this is very good. Thank you, Nora. Merci, Nora. Et la dernière question, quelle est la conjugaison du verbe porter? So this is something that we have done just previously a couple minutes ago. So can anyone try to find the root of the verb porter?
porte.
Porte, okay. So we stop here. And logically, est-ce que tu, or could you try to conjugate the verb porter, Sandeep?
Je portais.
So the pronunciation would be je porte, okay?
Je porte. With a.
Oh, okay.
Tu portes.
Yep.
With the A and the S.
Avec le E et le S, très bien.
Elle porte. With the A.
Avec le E, ça ne bouge pas, ok, très bien.
Nous portons.
Portons,
Vous portez.
très
Non,
bien.
vous portez.
Non, vous
I think-
portez.
Vous portez.
Mhm.
With the A and the Z.
Z, très bien.
The. And elles portent.
Ok, très bien. Merci Sandeep.
Ah.
Fais attention, try to pay attention to those S's. They're mute. Okay. Which can lead to tricky situation when we talk about, for example, conjugation in general, because there's no difference between the singular form of those two things. You would say il porte for the singular, and you would also say il porte for the plural. So orally, you can't make the difference between those two. However, if you're writing, you can like really make the difference. Merci Sandeep. Okay. So the he here doesn't make a sound. It only makes a sound here because it is combined with the Z. And that's something that we're going to look into a bit later on in the class. It's that E and Z together make the sound I, okay? Très bien. Des questions pour l'instant? Any questions maybe about the vocabulary here that you can see? For example, with the close, because that's something that we're going to see. Any questions for now? Nope. Nope. Okay. All right. So now that we are done with the conjugation, we're going to look at les vêtements. Okay, on va regarder les vêtements. So we have a couple of clothes items. Okay. Does anybody want to give it a try, or maybe does anybody know already what they are named? Can anybody give it a go, or do you want me to go first?
The first one is le pull.
Le pull, très bien. Ok. Une idée pour le deuxième? C'est facile. It's a
The t-shirt.
t-shirt. Yep. As you can see here, several words have been borrowed from English. So pull and t-shirt are both borrowed from English. Okay. Le troisième, qu'est-ce qu'on a? So what do we have here?
Le chemise.
La chemise, ok.
La chemise.
Chemise, ok. Très bien. Le deuxième, enfin le quatrième, on a
Pantalon.
pantalon, ok. Très bien. Ensuite, on a
Jupe.
une jupe, ok. Très bien. En bas, on a So it's the same thing as in English and French.
La robe.
La robe, ok, très bien. Une robe. Ensuite, on aura
Chaussures. Chaussures.
chaussures, très bien, ok. Ensuite, on a les
Lunettes.
lunettes, ok. Les deux derniers. This one is a little bit trickier. C'est une écharpe, okay? And the last one here is so there's two possibilities. You could either say une veste, okay? Ou un manteau. All right. So that's the clothes, okay? But something that we have to take into consideration is that all of those words have a specific gender, okay? So we're going to try to think of the articles that we should put before those words, okay? So for pull, pour pull, would it be feminine or masculine?
Masculine.
Masculine, okay, very good. C'est masculin. Ensuite, t-shirt,
Masculin.
masculin, très bien. Ensuite, chemise,
Féminin.
féminin, très bien. Ok, donc je mets le F ici. Ensuite, pantalon,
Masculin.
masculin. Do you see a certain pattern here with, for example, the masculine and the feminine?
If the noun ends in an E, then it's féminin.
So it's not a specific rule that is 100% correct, but it's generally correct. Yeah. So for example, we have pull, no E, it's masculine. T-shirt, same thing. Chemise as an E, so it would be considered feminine. Pantalon, no E, so masculine. Jupe, okay. Now that we know this, it will be a lot quicker because we know that robe is feminine. However, chaussure is both feminine and plural, okay? So be careful with that. Same thing for lunettes. It's feminine and plural. Écharpe is feminine. Et veste ou manteau, so it's feminine and masculine for manteau, okay? So when we talk about, well, clothes, here these are nouns, okay? So we have to be careful about two things, the gender and also the number. So if we have maybe, let's say, deux chemises, how would you write the word chemise? If we had two of them.
With an S at the end?
With an S at the end, yes, if it's plural, okay? Oh yeah, something that has to be mentioned. As far as I know, in English, every for example, pants, jeans, shorts, those are plural because it's like you call them a pair. So for example, a pair of jeans. So this rule doesn't apply to French, even though it's like a pair, we would just have the singular use. So for example, jeans would be jean, un jean, for example. Okay, so keep that in mind that most of the items or the clothes are singular depending on if it's a pair or not. In that case, pants, jeans aren't a pair. Okay, so there's a little reminder on your right about, well, that every noun can be either masculine or feminine. So that's always a very tricky part to kind of really memorize and to keep in mind, okay? Est-ce que vous avez des questions? Des questions sur les vêtements? Oui, Bethan?
For the lunette and choiseau, would the plural override the feminine, so it would just be masculine?
So in that case, it's, well, for example, lunette, or in this case, yeah, lunette is only feminine. It would be like the only way you would write lunette is feminine. Even if it's plural, it would still like maintain its feminine way of writing it. For example, if lunette was a masculine noun, it would be written this way instead of, well, lunettes. So, for example, if it was plural and masculine, it would be written this way. If it was feminine and masculine, or feminine and plural, it would be written this way. So in that case, because it's a noun and that it has only one gender, we wouldn't really say that the neutral and the masculine overrides it, because it always stays feminine. It would be this way, for example, with the next thing that we're going to talk about, with the adjectives, where an adjective can be both masculine as pronoun, as feminine, because, well, we're going to learn a little bit about that just right now, okay? So for example, if we take the example of the color, so colors, as I've told in the reminder and the reviews of the class, colors can be both, well, they can be both nouns. If we say, for example, le rouge, okay, this is a noun, but it also can be an adjective. So an adjective, you can really kind of understand and really identify if it's an adjective or a noun, because a noun is always present with an article. Okay, so for example, we have le rouge. We know that it's a noun because there is le before the noun. Okay, and if it was an adjective, it would be just rouge. Okay. Okay. So about the adjectives. So now we're going to talk about a little bit deeper about the grammar of French. Most of the time when we talk about grammar in French, and if we compare it to English, there are many similarities in the way we're writing. However, most of the orders, for example, of adjectives and adverbs are reversed. So for example, if we look at the corner, or like the right square here, we have the example of une robe violette, okay? Une robe violette. In English, you would be saying like a purple dress. here, if we directly translate it, it would be like a dress purple. So about the adjective more specifically here, the adjective always comes after what it is referring to. In that case, the noun. It will always be after. Okay. There are some exceptions, as always, because it couldn't be that easy, okay? But most of the time, you can take it for granted that the adjectives in French are always going to be after the noun. Same thing with adverbs. In most cases in English, adverbs are present before the things that they are describing. For example, I don't know, well, I don't have any examples for now. In French, it's different. It would be after also. So keep that in mind for adverbs and adjectives, that they kind of switch places with English, okay? So before that, we need to talk about, well, because here colors are adjectives, okay? So we need to know, depending on the gender and the number of the clothes, so in that case, the noun. So we need those informations in order to know how we would write the adjective, okay? So I don't know if it's really clear about the little square here, that every adjective agrees with the gender and the number of the noun. Is that, like, does that seem understandable to you? I don't know about the translation agreeing with. It's just that it kind of is linked to, okay? So in that case, if we look at the examples that we have here, we have, on a un pull, un pantalon, both masculine. Okay, les deux sont masculins. Donc, we would have the masculine version, or the masculine and singular version of those adjectives, okay? So vert, singular, masculine. Bleu, singular, masculine, because it's pantalon, which is singular and masculine, and pull, which is also singular and masculine. Same thing with jaune et marron, okay? Well, something that I should say about marron is that it's only masculine. It can be feminine for some reason. This is something that we call invariable en français, which is like unvariable, so it can't vary. It can change from masculine to feminine. It's only masculine. So it's going to be easier because marron is going to stay masculine, even if it's une écharpe, which is feminine. We would say une écharpe marron. We wouldn't say une écharpe marronne. That wouldn't work out because marron is invariable. Okay. So for the first two here, who wants to give it a try? Qui veut essayer de savoir, ou qui veut essayer d'écrire les mots ici? Alors, on a un t-shirt et on a un sweat. Alors, something that is, well, oftentimes that you encounter in words that are borrowed from English is that we borrow some words in English and we pronounce it very badly. Like, for example, here, you would say a sweater, okay? In French, we would say un sweat because we don't know how to pronounce the EA, okay? So in that case, we would say un sweat. Same thing maybe for those of you who are in France. Maybe you have tried to order a brownie have you tried to order maybe a brownie in France? So again, this is something that is borrowed from English, but we pronounce it like, well, the way maybe French people imagine English. So we would say a brownie. So this is like the case in many, well, words that are borrowed from English, is that we don't really borrow the word until the very last. We just like pronounce it in the French way, okay? Donc on a un t-shirt et un sweat. So who wants to try to write maybe in the chat how you would write, for example, here, un t-shirt with the color, ou un sweat with the color. So for the examples that we have, there's un pull vert, un pantalon bleu, une jupe noire, une chemise blanche, un t-shirt noir. Ok, très bien, c'est bien écrit. Un t-shirt noir, ok. Ensuite, on a... Qu'est-ce qu'on a, Johanna? On a un sweat. How would you write the adjective? Or how would you pronounce it, maybe?
Un sweat blanc.
Un sweat blanc, okay.
Blanc.
Uh,
Blanc.
Yeah, I'm saying un sweat as the French version, but well, if it's an English borrowed word, so it wouldn't make sense if you like try to sound very French. You can just say a sweat, un sweat blanc. It's totally understandable.
Blanc.
Okay, un sweat blanc. Okay, très bien. Ensuite, on a, maybe someone else can try. Here we have un pull et un t-shirt. So I'll just write it, okay? So we know that it's masculine, so we would say violet. And here the color is gris. On dirait un t-shirt gris, okay? And on and on and on. There are some colors with marron, and also like all the colors at the bottom, they have like an E at the end, even though, like for example, we have like jaune, rouge, et rose, okay? So if you would like be tempted to say that those are feminine because there's an E at the end, well, it's a good method of thinking, but here we know that adjectives can be both masculine as feminine. However, they wouldn't change because you know that, for example, if a noun or something is masculine, it takes an E. Here, it can take another E because that wouldn't make sense. It already has the E that is very, very identifiable of the feminine version. And maybe you would be thinking that, oh yeah, we should maybe try to like remove the E here. However, if we do that, the word would be pronounced differently. We would say rouge, which can't work out here. So we keep the same spelling. So be sure to really think about it. So it can be as masculine as feminine here because we have un jogging, okay? It's masculine, et une jupe, which is feminine, but it can be both written this way, same thing here, and same thing here, okay? So, an important lesson from the bottom line here is that some masculine words have an E, which is common. Again, it can happen. Some words also are unvariable, okay? They can change. So for example, if they're masculine, they can stay masculine, even though it's supposed to be feminine or spelled as a feminine word, okay? Des questions pour l'instant? Any questions maybe about, well, the adjectives? No questions? Does it seem clear to you, the adjectives and the rules of how we would use adjectives in French? Okay. So this is very tricky because you have to keep in mind that, or you have to keep in mind if it's feminine, if it's masculine, and also if it's plural or singular, okay? If we compare it to, for example, English, in English, we don't have like masculine or even gendered nouns, and adjectives don't vary depending on the gender, maybe of the person. Here, it depends of the gender and the number. So be mindful of that. Ok. Donc, on va un peu parler. Ok. On va se poser la question, tu portes quoi? Ok. Alors, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, tu portes quoi? C'est quoi, tu portes quoi? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? What does it mean?
What are you wearing?
Yeah. So, oh yeah, that's an interesting thing that you're saying. Well, you're saying, what are you wearing? So you're using the ing form for like the present continuous. The present continuous doesn't exist in French. We would simply use
You wear
the,
what?
excuse me, Sandeep?
You wear what? I
Like,
think this is the question.
it's most likely what Nora said with what are you wearing in the moment, okay? But it could also mean, depending on the context, what are you usually wearing, okay? But here the meaning is, what are you wearing? So in the moment. So what I was saying about, well, the use of the present continuous. Well, the present continuous doesn't exist in French. So we would simply use the present. What's important to understand, like if we're talking about in the moment, are the context in the words, like the indicators of time that you're going to use. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to be more specific about the moment, I could have said, tu portes quoi en ce moment? What are you wearing right now? Okay, but again, like this is something that is going to be learned a bit later on. Okay. So, tu portes quoi? There's an example here. Moi, je porte une chemise verte et un jean bleu. Okay? Jean is singular. C'est singulier. Et masculin. Et toi, tu portes quoi? Donc, je vais commencer, ok? I'll start, ok? Moi, je porte une chemise bleue et un jean bleu, ok? Sandeep, tu portes quoi, toi?
Je porte un shirt.
Un... Qu'est-ce que tu veux... What do you mean? Un short?
Shirt.
Oh, okay. Is it like a shirt like chemise or is it a t-shirt?
It's a shirt. It's like a.
Hmm.
It's not a t-shirt. It's a shirt.
Ok, donc
Uh,
tu dis une chemise.
okay. Un chemise.
Une chemise, ok, très bien.
Votre est un jaune, votre est un jean rouge.
Un jean rouge. Ok,
Oui.
très bien. Très bien, merci Sandeep. Est-ce que tu peux demander à quelqu'un d'autre dans la classe?
Oui.
Merci.
Et toi, tu portes quoi, Bella?
Bella, can you hear us? Are you here right now? Can you ask maybe someone else, Sandeep?
Yes.
Merci Sandeep.
Tu portes quoi, Loga? Loga Priya?
We'll try again. Maybe I think that Bethan, Nora, and Joanna are more available to answer.
Bethan?
Merci.
Oui. Moi, je porte un t-shirt bleu et un jean bleu.
Très bien. Ok. Merci Bethan. On continue avec Nora ou Joanna.
Et Joanna, tu portes quoi?
Moi, je porte un sweat noir et un pantalon blanc.
Très bien. Ok.
Et toi, Nora, tu portes quoi?
Moi, je porte un sweat noir et un pantalon noir.
Très bien. Un pantalon noir. Ok. Très bien. Super. Merci beaucoup. Loga and Bella, if you can't hear us or if your microphone isn't working, you can just write in chat whenever you can. Okay. Ok. Pas de questions là-dessus pour l'instant. No questions. Does it seem clear to you? Just a reminder. So, colors are mostly used as an adjective. Okay. So, for example, here you can see that the adjectives are always after, or most of the times are after the nouns. Okay. So that's something that is very typical about the French grammar that is different from the English grammar. Okay, so we're going to do a little pause because we're already late, as always. Maintenant, on va parler de la phonétique. The word phonetic in itself should ring a bell to you, as it is the same thing as in English. And even after, so how would you read this word here in
Accent.
French? Les accents, yeah. So a good example, again, of how the English and the French differs in itself, because like in English, you hear all the letters. In French, you don't hear the final letters. Okay, so what are the difference between those two letters? Quelles sont les différences entre ces deux lettres? Est-ce que quelqu'un saurait? Pour la première, peut-être? So for the first one, maybe? Je vais essayer, hein? C'est et, okay? The second one is eh. Can you hear or can you spot a little difference between eh and e? So, do you hear a difference, or does it seem really, really small to you?
It's hard to hear us.
It's hard, okay? So
Yeah.
this is part of something that is very tricky about French phonetics, is the recurring or very similar sounds. So here we have, so for the first one is e, okay? So you have kind of a something that is rising, okay? That can be like linked maybe with the accent that is rising. And the second one is e, which is more of something that is kind of going down. Okay, so it's kind of a good indicator with the accents. In English, there's no accent. So again, something that is way harder in French is that you have to learn about accents and how to pronounce them. In that case, those are two of the most important accents in French. We have E rising and E going down, okay? So what words like use or can you hear the E sound, and what other words you can hear the E sound? We are going to see that, okay? So there's kind of a classification of those two. For example, the sound E, you've already encountered it with the verbs that ends with ER, okay? And also with their conjugation with the ENZ, okay? And also, logically speaking, because we have this accent, we also know that every E that has this accent would be pronounced A. Can anyone try to read the three examples that we have here?
The
Anyone
first
will?
one is bébé.
Bébé, très bien.
The second one is papier.
Papier, très bien.
And the last one is it venez?
Venez, très bien. So you can hear that it's the same thing. Bébé, papier, venez. It's the same pronunciation, okay? You can see that, for example, in the word venez, you have like two pronunciations of the letter E, okay? So here it's E. So like maybe well, you could say that it's the basic pronunciation of the French E, okay? And then you have E, okay? As you can see, it's often present at the end of words, okay? So here you can see that for those three examples, the sound A is at the end, okay? And so for the second one, that is a little more rare, okay, to encounter, the sound E. So can anyone want to read the four words here? Joanna, peut-être. Bethan, maybe. Peut-être. Sandeep.
I can try.
Ok, je t'écoute, Joanna.
Fenêtre,
Fenêtre. Ok.
mer,
Mer. Très bien.
ballet,
Ballet.
ballet, rain,
Reine. Très bien.
ren, ren.
Okay. So this word is not to be confused with ballet, which is in English ballet, or in French ballet, which is like the dancing. Here it's dancing. If you see it with an S, like it would be like multiple brooms, okay? So be mindful of that. So well done, bravo, Johanna. On entend bien le E, on entend une différence. So we can really hear a difference. Here, you can see that it's a bit more common to encounter it like maybe in middle of words with here, here, but also we can see it at the end of words, okay? So is it something that you have already encountered when maybe you previously learned French and that kind of pronunciation and how to differentiate each of those little pronunciation gave you trouble?
Yeah, I learned this like 20 years ago in high school, so I don't
Okay.
remember everything.
Yeah. Donc, so for example, we can see that we would classify that. So these are the two most common, well, sounds that would be easily confused with each other. Also, it's hard to learn about accents in French. In that case, you also have another accent here. We call it the accent circonflexe, okay? So that little hat here. This is one of the most uncommon accents, but as you can see, it is the same pronunciation as eh, okay? Aside from that, so how would we call those two accents? Does anybody have an idea?
I know one of them is accent aigu.
Accent aigu is the first
Right.
one. So
Okay.
the E, okay? And the other one is accent grave, okay? So if we talk about the spectre of sound in French, we have aigu, which is kind of the highest point, and then we have grave. So it's, for example, I don't know the translation in English for aigu and grave. Good question. I don't know the words in English, so try to keep in mind that aigu is something that is higher and grave is something that is a lower sound, okay? And also a good mean to memorize what's the pronunciation each other, as I've told previously, is that the accent is rising, so we know that it's going to be higher, and the other one is getting down, so we know it's going to be a little bit lower. Okay? Des questions là-dessus? Non? Ok. Alors, on enchaîne sur la fin de cette séance. Okay, so this is going to be the last activity of our lesson and about the second unity that we talked about. Okay, so for the past 3 lessons we learned about like sports, hobbies, etc. Today we learned about clothes, about colors, about numbers. Okay, and also the use of the first group verbs. Okay, so chacun votre tour, or maybe the 4 of you who are actively participating, I want you to talk about or give like at least one sentence each about the hobbies you like, donc vos loisirs, okay? Maybe sports, peut-être de sport, okay? Et j'aimerais que vous utilisiez les verbes aimer et préférer. Okay, so I would like you to use the verbs aimer and préférer. Also, you can use, for example, the verb porter because we've seen it today also. So I've written an example at the bottom that says j'aime jouer au basketball. Je porte des chaussures vertes et un short blanc. Okay. So I kind of want in each of your sentences to find at least 1 or 2 verbs, okay, and at least an adjective and something that we saw today or previously. Okay. Donc je répète, hein, I repeat, j'aime jouer au basketball, je porte des chaussures vertes et un short blanc. Je vais commencer avec Sandeep. Sandeep, toi, quels sont tes loisirs et qu'est-ce que tu aimes peut-être dans le sport ou ce que tu aimes porter comme vêtements?
J'adore football.
Le football, très bien.
Oui. Je porte des t-shirts, je porte des chemises vert et un jean rouge.
Okay, so for example, if you say t-shirt,
Mhm.
here you said des t-shirts. I mean, I don't think that you are wearing multiple t-shirts at the same
Okay.
time.
Mhm.
So for example, you would most likely say je porte un t-shirt.
Oui, je porte un t-shirt.
Yeah, but this is
Vert
singular.
correct. So, je porte un t-shirt vert et un jean rouge.
Très bien, merci Sandeep. Est-ce que tu peux demander à Nora, Bethan ou Johanna?
I'll go.
Yeah, you can go.
Um,
Okay, Nora.
J'aime faire de la natation.
Très bien.
Je porte un sweat noir et un pantalon noir.
Ok, très bien. Super, super. Merci beaucoup, Nora. Bethan ou Johanna? Qui veut commencer? Who wants to start?
I can try.
Ok, Johanna.
I'm not sure. Is it j'aime jouer aux danses or j'aime faire de danse? Aux danses.
So it would be j'aime faire de la danse because as we saw, it's the same thing as in English where you would use the verb play if it was, for
Mhm.
example, a game.
Okay.
Here, dance is not a game, so we'd say j'aime faire.
J'aime faire de la danse.
Très bien.
Je porte un sweat noir et un pantalon blanc.
Très bien. Un pantalon blanc. Très, très bien. Merci, Johanna. Et on finit avec Bethan.
Yeah, j'aime faire de natation.
Ok, très bien.
Je porte un t-shirt bleu.
Ok, très bien. Ok, super. Merci beaucoup, vous quatre. Okay, do you have any questions about maybe some structures that you didn't understand? No, no question.
No, all good.
Okay, so it's already a bit late. It's almost 5 minutes past the ending of the class. However, if you have any questions about what we saw today or what we saw previously, or if you have any questions regarding French in general, you can, well, we can stay for another couple minutes if you want. Pas de questions? No questions? Ok, bah, très bien. En tout cas, merci beaucoup d'être venu. So thanks all of you for coming in. I hope that the class was nice or pleasant. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, I stay at your disposal by mail. You can feel free to write me an email and I'll answer as soon as I can. All right. Donc merci beaucoup d'être venu. On se voit mardi. We see each other on Tuesday. Okay. Feel free to reach out if you are not going to be present on Tuesday. So, merci beaucoup. Je vous souhaite une
Merci
bonne
beaucoup,
journée et un
Adriel.
bon week-end. Bon week-end, Sandeep. Okay. And I'll see you on Tuesday. All right. Passez un bon
Merci, au
week-end.
revoir.
Merci, au
Merci à
revoir.
vous. Au revoir.
Bonne journée.
Bonne journée à toi, Nora. Bonne journée, Bella.